All good? All right. Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to this fifth edition of Graps. I'm your host, Joe Gierer. And for what feels like the first time in a long time on this show, we're going to be starting by not recapping some sort of PLE or special event. But as always, we'll be ending up talking about one towards the end of the show because tonight on NXT, they are hosting not a PLE, but a special event for themselves, that being NXT Roadblock at Madison Square Garden at the theater, which we'll get into a little bit later. But for starters, we're going to start off with SmackDown this week. And like I said, I like to give the shine at the end of the show to, somebody or someone that's having a special event that week, whether it be main roster or NXT. This week it so happens to be NXT. So we're going to be finishing up with NXT and talking about that NXT Roadblock special edition of the show that I alluded to just a minute ago. So to start off with SmackDown this week, I would say it was a pretty eventful week in wrestling. It wasn't anything too crazy, but it was also very eventful. To start off with SmackDown, the show opened by showing superstar entrances as they normally do, and Drew McIntyre ended up running up on and attacking Damian Priest during his own entrance. It wasn't even Damian's entrance. So Drew was just out there being a hater per usual. And we alluded to several things that Drew McIntyre could go into this WrestleMania season. In the last, one of the last few episodes, I predicted that they would pivot due to some outrage by him about this Damian Priest program and maybe put him in a program with LA Knight. But it seems that's not the case because of everything they've been building between Damian and Drew McIntyre. So that original program that some people were outraged by of Damian Priest and Drew McIntyre in a one-on-one match at WrestleMania, it appears that's the route that they're going to go. So, and the feud's been all right so far. So I'm looking forward to seeing how they build that going forward into WrestleMania. But Drew McIntyre attacked Damian and laid him out backstage during his own entrance. As for in-ring, we opened with Randy Orton, his official return to weekly television after Elimination Chamber, where he came out to save Sami Zayn. And before he got into Kevin Owens and that whole ordeal, he had to make sure he not shouted out, but shot at John Cena a little bit due to the heel turn. And what's it called? Randy Orton came out and he had a good line. He called Cena. He said Cena's always been on top, but now he's been a bottom for The Rock, which I thought was a funny line. But that wasn't the meat of that promo. The meat of that promo was really Randy Orton going at Kevin Owens. And his main shot on Kevin Owens was that he's very jealousy driven. And I believe he mentioned, turning on guys like anybody he's turned on in the past, especially most recently Cody Rhodes. He alluded to the fact that it was because he had gold around his waist and that he was thriving and being successful. And Randy Orton believes that Kevin Owens can't see any of his friends or so-called friends become more successful than him, or else he gets jealous and he's going to snap on them. Which I feel like if you go back down, if you go down the history of Kevin Owens and all the turns he's had, it's a valid point. It's a good way to build that story. So Randy Orton came out and he was calling out Kevin Owens for it. And he started getting those 09 Randy urges back, it seems like. That's what a lot of people had said online. And he had another good line. Randy he cut a pretty good promo in general. And one of his better lines that I thought, and I think most people thought, was that he said that he's going to make it a point to prove that Pat McAfee is only the second best punter in WWE, which we haven't seen the punt kick in years from Randy Orton. So it seems like he's tapping back into those psycho urges that he had way back when. And I would put money down on it that at WrestleMania, it'll be Kevin Owens versus Randy Orton. And at some point in that match or another, whether he kicks out, whether he doesn't, Kevin Owens is catching a punt kick to the head from Randy Orton. Tiffany Stratton had a match against Piper Niven that was set up backstage earlier in the night. And she won, as I think everybody expected she would. And it was okay. And then she got blindsided by Charlotte. And this was the first real attack, I feel like, that Charlotte had on Tiffany, because she's kind of just been coming out and standing tall, looking strong over a beat-up Tiffany when she really didn't do any of the work. But this week was the first time she came out and actually did some stuff herself. it wasn't entirely her. I believe Piper Niven laid out Tiffany after the match herself. And then Charlotte hopped in the ring over her dead body and put her in the figure eight lock, hit the bridge. It looked like it was doing a lot of damage to Tiffany Stratton. She sold it well. So for the first time, like I said in this feud, Charlotte Flair got the upper hand on Tiffany, not by just standing over her, but by actually taking some initiative and attacking her. So hopefully this gets the ball rolling because that feud's been a little stale this past month. So hopefully that gets the ball rolling on that Charlotte versus Tiffany feud because a lot of people feel like it's been a little lackluster. A lot of people have been saying that Tiffany Stratton might have gotten rushed into a feud of this magnitude, but I think she could hold her own. I just think it depends on the booking because I think she most definitely has the talent to go out and have a banger match with Charlotte Flair at WrestleMania in Vegas. As for the mic skills, I feel like Tiffany has okay mic skills. They just have to let her be kind of that NXT heel type person that she was. If you go back a year or year and a half or so. But yeah, they just got to give her the opportunity. And if they don't make her tap into just being this, you know, like underdog babyface character, and she goes back to more of this bitchy heel that she was when she was with NXT, even if she's still face, because she is the face in this feud. But if she taps back into that just a little bit, I feel like it would heat the feud up a lot more. They booked Street Profits versus DIY for the tag team titles next week in Barcelona next week. Technically this week on Friday is when WWE starts that European tour that they'll be on for about 3 or 4 weeks. I don't remember how many weeks it actually is, but they'll be touring around Europe, going to Spain, going to Brussels and Belgium. They're going to Italy. They're going to several different places. So Europe finally gets their weekly show shine, which they don't really get very often. It feels like it's usually in the United States. But the Street Profits and DIY will battle for the tag titles next week on SmackDown. Technically this week, like I said, in Barcelona, Spain. Pretty Deadly won the triple threat match to become number one contenders. I believe they fought Motor City Machine Guns and Los Garza. At least that feels right. I think it is. Don't quote me on that, but they did win. I thought they were the least likely winners of the entire field. So it was pretty funny and cool to see them get that win, and they're going to get a tag title rematch against whoever wins between the Street Profits and DIY in Barcelona. So Pretty Deadly is getting what seems to be kind of a similar tag push to what they got when they first came in. Because if you remember, they were going on an undefeated streak and they made it all the way up to a tag title match against Sammy and KO back in 2023. But then they kind of got pushed off to the side. And they are a pretty talented tag team. They're very entertaining. They know how to have a funny segment. They do pretty good work all around. So it's good to see them get a push again. And yeah, they'll be fighting the winners of the Street Profits and DIY next week for the tag team championships. They're the number one contenders. Then they had this great segment a little bit later on, like right after that tag triple threat match with Bianca Belair and Naomi. And if you watch wrestling and are watching this show, you know what I'm talking about. I thought it was really well done. The emotions were there. Naomi was still trying to deny that it was her that attacked Jade Cargill. She was trying to beat around the bush or dance around it if you watched it. But Bianca wasn't having any of it. She kept saying, just let me know if you did it. Stop lying to me. I'll walk out right now and you'll never hear from me again. Just let me know that you did it. And Naomi admitted to it. She admitted that she was the one that attacked Jade back in November, pushed her off the ledge into the car. And her reasoning for it, she said she did it because she was leeching off Bianca's success, Jade that being, and was saying she was stealing her own shine and she loved Bianca Belair too much to let her have that happen to her. So similar storyline to what, maybe not exactly, but it's a similar way that Jimmy quoted to be betrayed Jay back in SummerSlam 2023 because he said he loved Jay too much to see him fall into that position that Roman Reigns was in should he have won the WWE championship. And it's funny that his wife is having not the exact same, but a similar reason for turning on her own friend. She claimed to have never give a damn about Jade. It was all about Bianca. And when she saw that Bianca was getting overshadowed by Jade, or Jade was trying to leech off Bianca's success, she said Jade was holding Bianca back. And that was the reason that she took Jade out because she wanted to step in and make sure that Bianca gets elevated to those heights that she knows she can be, or that she's been in the past. So it was a solid reason. I thought it was a good reason for the heel turn, even though she was just justifying it. Bianca didn't buy any of it. She said, "Never talk to me again. I'm out." She walked away, and Naomi dropped a line on her as she was walking away, crying, said, "You ungrateful bitch." It was pretty emotional. That was the line that a lot of people were talking about coming out of that promo. The whole segment was great. And then you saw Jade come out at the end and attack Naomi for the words that she was saying. So Jaomi, what was that? Jade versus Naomi is going to be the WrestleMania match. Bianca versus Io Sky is going to be the WrestleMania match. If not, Bianca versus Io Sky versus Rhea Ripley, if she finds her way in there, which we'll get into. It seems like she will. But Naomi and Jade at WrestleMania is the match. Drew's attack on Damian was completely deserved in his own mind as he cut a backstage promo or backstage interview. He said that it was deserved for everything Damian's been doing to him. Casual Drew McIntyre delusion, and further builds that feud and builds this idea in Drew McIntyre's head that everything he does is justified and that he's never wrong in any of his attacks or any of his moves in regards to other people on the roster. He's never been wrong in his own head. They set a weird matchup. They set Charlotte versus B-Fab for next week in Barcelona after Charlotte called the women's division soft in a backstage interview. B-Fab overheard that, and she came over and started running her mouth to Charlotte. Charlotte was running her mouth back. And Charlotte's first singles match back in the company now is going to be in Barcelona next week, this week. I keep saying next week because at the time it was next week, but now it's this week. This Friday, Charlotte is back in the ring for the first time since the Rumble and back in singles competition for the first time since 2023. And she'll be going one-on-one with B-Fab, which I feel obviously Charlotte will win that match. It would be pretty stupid of them to have B-Fab win that match, especially going into a world title match at WrestleMania. So 100% probability that Charlotte wins her return match. But it's a good show of faith in B-Fab to have her go out there and be the one to work Charlotte for the first time back in the company in a year and a half in singles action. You can't really rely on anybody else to go out there and do that. So obviously in a one-on-one match. So props to B-Fab, although I don't think it'll be the longest match. I'm hoping they give B-Fab a good showing because she has talent. She has in-ring talent. She has talent on the mic. She's able to go with plenty of girls on the roster. So if it's a start of a push for B-Fab, maybe a mid-card title push, U.S. title push they teased in the past, we shall see. But props to her for getting that Charlotte match as the first one back. Braun Strowman was ambushed by Tama Tonga going for the cover on Solo in their matchup, to which it was a no contest because obviously it was a DQ. Tama Tonga got involved. Braun was going to win. But Jacob and Braun ended up brawling through the crowd after that match. And there was a spot where Braun like choke slammed Jacob off a height through a table. And he just got back up and stared at him like they're building up Jacob as this unstoppable, unbreakable force, pretty much. So, yeah, they've had that feud going on for a while, it feels like. It's been since, they've ran that match at Saturday night's main event before the Royal Rumble. So it's been a month and a half of that feud now, if not more, if you want to go back to when they were building it up. So Braun Strowman versus Jacob Fatu remains ongoing. And whether it be a WrestleMania match or not, I don't think it is. I think it'll be with Solo. It's safe to say that feud is not coming to a halt anytime soon. That's going to be one of those feuds that's currently and continuously ongoing. Zelina Vega declared that she was coming for the U.S. title officially. So whoever won that night between Chelsea Green and Mi Chin in their street fight was going to end up seeing Zelina Vega next, most likely, according to her. And it's good for her. I feel like a mid-card title, especially like a United States championship, fits her perfectly and her character because she's one of those girls that you never really see when she goes into the world title feud getting over and getting the belt. Maybe at some point down the line, but as of right now, she is definitely one of the top candidates to get herself a mid-card title, whether it was the Intercontinental Championship on Raw, the United States Championship on SmackDown. But she officially declared that she was coming for that title, and I feel like that's a good feud for Well, we'll say it now. It was Chelsea Green that won that match. I'll get into that a little bit down the line. But a face Zelina Vega against that heel Chelsea Green, I feel like that's a good feud for that title. Could help elevate that title, be an entertaining feud for that title. So Zelina Vega is coming for Chelsea Green in the near future. Chelsea, like I said, retained after her street fight with Mi Chin, but it wasn't by casual Chelsea. Well, it was by casual Chelsea means with some interference, not a clean one-on-one win. But it wasn't Piper Niven. Piper Niven got ran out to the crowd. She was gone. Who came out and interfered in that match to help me? I think it might have been who came out. I don't know. Remember. I don't know. I don't remember. It might have been BFAB. I'm not sure. But Piper Niven got ran out the crowd, and Chelsea Green appeared to have no help until a mysterious figure in a hoodie came out and laid out Mi Chin and threw her back in the ring for Chelsea to cover. And it turned out to be Alba Fire, which, former women's tag team champion, one half of the women's tag team champions with the Unholy Union and Isla Dawn. But Isla Dawn was part of those recent WWE cuts. So you didn't really know which direction they were going with Alba Fire because she wasn't cut along with her tag partners. So they had to find a new way for her to go. And I guess their solution was to put her in a faction with Piper Niven and Chelsea Green. She came out as a new member of this Secret Service that Chelsea Green has for the United States Championship and helped her retain against Mi Chin. So Alba Fire is back in WWE. It's been a while since we saw her, but she'll be part of with Piper Niven and Chelsea Green moving forward. Andrade was recruiting Humberto backstage in a segment with Santos, Angel, Las Garza. Andrade came out and told Berto that he's much better than that, what Santos does to him, and that he deserves better. So maybe Andrade's pulling some strings and trying to form his own feud, turn them against Santos Escobar. And now, would that mean Andrade is in a face faction? Would he be in a heel faction? Would that turn Santos Escobar back face? I don't really know. I don't think you could turn Santos Escobar back face at this point. But Andrade seems to be recruiting Berto for his own faction, and I think that's great because Berto is a really good in-ring talent. Andrade is a really good in-ring talent. He's gotten over with the fan base and gotten big reactions on his matches, not for any other reason because he can't cut a promo in English at least. And they send him out there sometimes and have him cut those promos in English. But they have gotten to grow this relationship, the fan base with Andrade, just because of how good of a wrestler he is. And if you can give that rub to a guy like Berto, who's also a great wrestler, it should be a fun faction, fun tag team, whatever it may be. Those two are great, and I feel like they'd work good together. Cody spoke out for the first time since the attack the previous Saturday by John Cena. Came out with a big bruise on his eye. He looked all beat up, and he cut a pretty good promo on John Cena. As for the specifics of what he said, I liked what he said at the end when he said, "It seems like you want some, so come get some." It was a good play on words as to what John Cena himself says all the time or used to say. If you want some, come get some. He dropped it last in January not after the Royal Rumble, at the Netflix Raw premiere about the Royal Rumble. So it was a good play on words. I thought that promo was well done. And a lot of people are looking forward to this Cody Rhodes versus John Cena feud, except for some Bloodline stands on Twitter, which you can't help those people. But Cody Rhodes, John Cena should be a good feud. John Cena will be back very soon. I'll get into that later on Monday Night Raw, on the Monday Night Raw recap. But Cody Rhodes did a really good job starting off or getting this feud with him and John Cena off and running on Friday night. And apparently The Miz in Barcelona wants to give him more spotlight to talk about these things that he wants to talk about because The Miz booked Miz TV for this Friday with Cody Rhodes. And they also backstage caught Carmelo Hayes running his mouth again while The Miz was there talking to Nick Aldis. Randy Orton happened to walk in when his name was mentioned, and they set up another match between Carmelo Hayes and Randy Orton, which I feel pretty confident in saying Randy Orton is going to win this time. Melo rolled him up way back when, caught an RKO for his troubles a little bit after that. But Randy Orton and Carmelo Hayes next week should be a really good, and the name of this show should be some real graps, some good graps. And looking forward to it again. Drew McIntyre got a win over Jimmy Uso after Jimmy pulled off the stunner a couple of weeks back. And as he came back to attack Jimmy Uso after the match, it seemed like he got angry again. Damian now was the one reversing the tables, came out and attacked Drew from behind and laid him out. So, like I said before, more build for that WrestleMania match. They're trying to get this feud up and going, which I'm fine with. I mean, I believe Drew McIntyre did deserve some sort of world title picture feud. I said he might have won the Royal, not the Royal Rumble. I could have seen him winning the Elimination Chamber, but Damian versus Drew, world champion versus world champion, if you want to look at it that way, that'll be the main event. Not the main event. That will not be the main event, especially not for a world title. But that'll be a WrestleMania feud, and they're building it off. They're building it off pretty good. It's going to be a blood feud, I imagine. They have plenty of time to build that up. So Drew McIntyre versus Damian Priest, off and running. And in the main event, you saw LA Knight challenge again for the United States Championship against Shinsuke Nakamura, an opportunity that he earned in that makeshift tournament last week, the one night only tournament. Won that triple threat with Jacob Fatu and who did he win it with? I'm not sure. I don't remember. My brain is a little foggy right now. But he won that triple threat nonetheless. Oh, and Carmelo Hayes. How could I forget? Jacob Fatu and Carmelo Hayes. LA Knight beat both of them to get this opportunity at Shinsuke Nakamura for the U.S. title. And finally, the reign of terror is over. Shinsuke Nakamura has not been used on TV, and perhaps we know why now. It was reported recently that his contract with the WWE is coming to an end soon, and it doesn't really seem like they have any plans to renew it, which sucks in a way because Shinsuke Nakamura obviously was somebody who way back when was really over with the fan base. He was a real hype debut. A lot of people thought he deserved a world title run in his time with WWE, which I have to agree with. Shinsuke Nakamura was a guy who I was pushing to beat Seth Rollins in 2023, crazily enough, but it seems like they don't want to bring him back. So his time in WWE is rounding down here. And obviously you don't want him walking out with the belt. So LA Knight took that back. I don't know why that was. I don't know if that was the reason that Shinsuke wasn't being used on TV as US champ for these last few months that he's had it. He had it since November. So that's November, December, well, the end of November and, full month of December, full month of January, full month of February, lost it in March. So 3.5, 4 months he had that belt and he was barely used on TV, maybe defended once or twice. So the reign of terror is over. LA Knight is going to be back and active with that U.S. Championship going into WrestleMania season. And I feel that's exactly how it should be. So good booking. Get LA Knight back the belt. He was active with it. And looking forward to seeing the United States Championship, a staple of the SmackDown show, back and active again going into WrestleMania season because you want all titles active going into WrestleMania season. That wraps up SmackDown. Quick note before I go into Monday Night Raw, some club recognition. Congratulations to Landon Popovich, the host of Empire State of Sports, for seeing himself as a finalist in the IBS for Best Sports Talk Show, along with congratulations to Ball Knowers for being this week's show of the week. You can watch Ball Knowers Thursdays from 12 to 1 p.m., hosted by Robbie, Luke, and Cameron, only on WIUR. Now, to get into Monday Night Raw from last night, took place at MSG right down the road from us here in New Rochelle. Only a train ride away. I myself had thoughts of going, but I didn't feel like spending all that money on that ticket because the ticket was up near $200 last time I checked. But in hindsight, I feel like it would have been a great time to go to MSG and go to Monday Night Raw because obviously, one, it's WrestleMania season, which you can expect some big moments and big things to happen, which there was one last night. We'll touch on it in a few minutes here. But yeah, I thought it was a really well done show. It was a great show. Set up a good show for next week in Brussels, Belgium. So in hindsight, maybe I should have spent that money on that ticket, get that experience, seen that show because it was a fun show. But I don't think I'll be making that mistake again because I believe I haven't yet, but I believe I'm going to buy a ticket or two to go see NXT Roadblock tonight at the MSG Theater because I can't miss out on another great experience, and the NXT Roadblock card is stacked. But nonetheless, back to Monday Night Raw in MSG. Jey Uso and Grayson Waller kicked it off. Jey ended up defeating Waller with a spear. He was getting attacked by Waller and Austin Theory after the match. Ended up defying the odds, fighting them both off, but then Gunther popped out of nowhere, caught him in a chokehold, a sleeper hold, and put him to sleep. This is the second week in a row that Gunther has put Jay to sleep. And as he promised a couple of weeks back, if you pick me, it's the worst mistake of your life. It'll be the 10 weeks from hell to WrestleMania. And so far, he's been living up to his promise by bullying Jay. He put Jay out cold twice. So not an easy build to WrestleMania for Jay. And Otis and the Alpha Academy said they've got his back if they need him. So we'll see how that progresses moving forward. But Jay has some friends to lean on should he need them. Then Logan Paul came out and he started attacking the comedian Andrew Schultz, who just had a special put out on Netflix that I saw advertised. Haven't watched it, so I cannot confirm or deny whether you should go watch it or not. But I know Andrew Schultz. He had a good moment during that Logan promo where they gave him the mic and he said, "Oh, tell him who you're here for." And he said, "Logan, nobody's here for you. I'm here for the steel cage match. I'm here to see AJ Styles," which obviously got Logan's blood boiling in that promo because the whole reason he was there was because AJ Styles was going to call him out. And not long after, when Logan ripped Schultz into the ring and started beating him up, you saw AJ Styles come out to make the save, and he called out Logan Paul in the process. So, as promised, AJ Styles was there for Logan Paul, and it appears that'll also be the WrestleMania match, one-on-one, AJ Styles versus Logan Paul, which unironically would be a great match. So, looking forward to it. Now, I have in my notes that Chad Gable returned in a lucha mask and cost the LWO their tornado tag match against the New Day. Now, this is a little complicated because you heard the voice, the old gracias, that whole thing. That was funny. I thought it was great. The moveset was Chad Gable. It was obviously Chad Gable. But then a little bit later in the show down the line, as I have down here, Chad Gable was caught denying of the allegations to Kathy Kelly backstage. And then he kept saying that, like, it was meant to be a funny segment, and I thought it was funny because they're like, "Oh, you're wearing the same things. How is it not you?" And then in the background, you see security removing this guy in the American-made lucha mask that Chad Gable would have been gifted from the arena. That's not Chad Gable. So many people are speculating, oh, could it be Rey Fenix? Because Rey Fenix is obviously, for those who know, Penta's tag partner, and he hasn't been moved to WWE yet. It's been reported that they have stuff in the works for him, that he signed a contract. He'll be debuting at some point soon down the line. But I don't think it was Rey Fenix. I don't think that's the route they're going. I just think it was meant to be a funny segment. I feel like people are reading too much into it because that was Chad Gable that came out in the lucha mask. Everyone knows it. But, you know, what do I know? I have no idea what route they're going. They can twist and turn us all they want. But I believe that was Chad Gable in the lucha mask. And the New Day got to win and hopefully put that feud with the LWO to bed, because the LWO are great in-ring performers, and not just the LWO. Last night was the two main guys, Dragon Lee and Rey Mysterio. And Rey Mysterio, obviously one of the greatest of all time. Dragon Lee is arguably one of the best in the world today. He's so good in the ring. But that was just a lackluster feud, and hopefully that put the end to it that it needed. Speaking of the Mysterio family, Dominic Mysterio continued to take charge in the Judgment Day. Finn's always walking around angry. Oh, we got embarrassed last week. The casual Finn stuff over the last month or so. But Dominic Mysterio, Liv Morgan, and Raquel Rodriguez came back. They said they were talking to Adam Pearce, and Dominic Mysterio seems to be taking the charge again in that group. He got Raquel Rodriguez a match against Bayley to be number one contender against Lyra Valkyria and her Intercontinental Championship. And he also got an Intercontinental Championship match against Braun Breaker for next week, to which Finn was like, "Oh, you got yourself a match." Yeah. But Dominic got Finn a match. He put Finn against Braun Breaker next week in Belgium for the Intercontinental Championship. How that match will go down, who knows? But when Finn gave Dominic a hug, he gave him the little side eye from behind. So I think the group will be turning against Finn at some point down the line. Will it make Finn the face? I would imagine so, because I don't think Dominic Mysterio could be a face at this point. Maybe Liv Morgan. No, I don't think anybody in that group, other than maybe Finn Balor with the right justification, and Carlito, can be face. Carlito's not even a heel. He just does the heel things. But Carlito is comedy relief. Nobody dislikes Carlito. Nobody dislikes him. So will they cost Finn? Will they not? Who knows? But Dominic is taking charge, and it seems like he's becoming the new leader in the Judgment Day. And a side note to point out, during Io Sky's entrance to the ring last night, you saw Dominic chopping it up with Ludwig Kaiser off left in some doorway in the backstage. So Dominic's been looking for a third member. Not a third member, a new member. I don't think it'll be Ludwig Kaiser, but who knows what they were cooking over there off to the side. Dominic, again, just talking to guys, taking charge, potentially trying to recruit. Who knows? But Dominic Mysterio is becoming the man in the Judgment Day. Cody Rhodes came out. He was announced yesterday for the show. He wasn't originally advertised, but he called out John Cena yet again, and he let us know that he and John Cena will be under one roof, face-to-face in Belgium next week in Brussels. So the first interaction between the two since the heel turn at the Elimination Chamber, and the first sighting of John Cena since then, which obviously I think everybody who watches wrestling is looking forward to that segment. As for that match I mentioned before with Raquel Rodriguez, she defeated Bayley to become the number one contender to Lyra Valkyria's championship, which I didn't think she was going to win. I thought Bayley would become that because that feels like a match that should happen for the Intercontinental Championship. Bayley, who's held every title except it because it was just introduced, versus the young up-and-comer Lyra Valkyria, get a nice defense under her belt. But they're rolling with Raquel Rodriguez. Do I think Raquel Rodriguez will win against Lyra Valkyria? For the simple fact that she's in the Judgment Day, we don't know. Could have some outside interference. She's a big human. They could push her as this big force. However, I believe Lyra Valkyria's reign will go on. I believe she'll retain against Raquel Rodriguez. I believe that's also next week in Belgium. No, it's not. They didn't book that for Belgium. They booked the other Intercontinental Championship for Belgium, like I mentioned. But Lyra Valkyria will be facing Raquel Rodriguez for another Intercontinental Championship defense in this near future. That Io Sky Bianca Belair segment was nice. Io Sky did an interview with Michael Cole. Michael Cole brought out Bianca Belair, to which she was interrupted by Rhea Ripley. And Rhea Ripley had this promo. She had this whole 5-minute promo off air on social media last week where she kind of blamed herself. She said, I'm stupid. But then she was kind of saying friends in this business aren't real, which seems like maybe they're having her tap back into that heel side of her because what she said made no sense. Bianca was just on the side watching the match, cheering them on. She clapped for Rhea. She clapped for Io Sky. But Rhea took it in the wrong way. And she was getting upset that Bianca was clapping for Io Sky. She was being a cheerleader, and Rhea's just in her own delusional mind, like, oh, what? You're scared of me? You don't want to face me at WrestleMania? Which, if you remember, like, go back a couple of years, Bianca was holding the Raw Women's Championship in 2023, and Charlotte Flair was holding SmackDown Women's Championship. And it was Rhea Ripley that challenged Charlotte Flair instead of Bianca Belair. If you want to go that far back, she didn't want to face Bianca Belair. She'd rather face Charlotte. So I guess Bianca, if she wanted to, could throw that back at her. Like, you've been ducking me. I'm not scared of you. But then there was this part where they were nose to nose arguing with one another on the mic. And Rhea pushed Io Sky away when she was trying to break it up. And then Bianca did the same. So Io came out and pretty much just bitch slapped both of them across the face to remind them, hey, you guys aren't the main event here. I'm the champion. This is my WrestleMania moment. I'm facing Bianca. Rhea, you have nothing to do with this. Don't forget about me. Don't disrespect me. Don't forget who I am, which I thought was funny and also great because Io Sky is, of the three of them, I would argue the best wrestler of the three of them. She is the one with the belt. So don't make the story about Rhea Ripley and Bianca Belair and put Io to the side as an afterthought, because if Io Sky retained in that match at WrestleMania, I don't think many people would be upset with that decision. So it was nice to have Io remind them, like, hey, I'm champ. I'm center of attention. Don't forget about me. Never disrespect me like that. They booked a few matches for Brussels next week. They booked Jey Uso versus Austin Theory based on what happened after the match earlier in the night. They also booked Penta versus Ludwig Kaiser in a no-holds-barred match, which had no build on the TV show, but they've built it, obviously. They built it last week between the two. So no holds barred, first no DQ match for Penta since coming into the company, which should be a fun one. Both guys are great workers, and that could arguably steal the show next week outside of maybe the John Cena segment, because obviously John Cena is too big a draw to not get all the attention, especially his first appearance after turning heel. But in terms of matches, you have some good matches. Finn Balor versus Braun Breaker for the Intercontinental Championship, and they also booked a grudge match between Dakota Kai and Ivy Nile as they're building up that personal feud between the two of them. in that Intercontinental Championship picture. So those two will run it back. Braun Breaker and Finn are going to run it for the Intercontinental Championship. And what I believe will end up being match of the night, you have Penta versus Ludwig Kaiser in a no holds barred. Now, as for the match of the night last night, you had that big steel cage match main event, which some people could argue was in jest because AEW was running a big steel cage match the night before, but I'm not one for the tribalism. I said I don't watch AEW, but I don't mind the company. So regardless of how you feel, WWE ran a steel cage match between Seth Rollins and CM Punk last night. Match 2, and what you would imagine to be a trilogy saga between the two. My numbers are all over the place right now, but it was a great match, hell of a match, just how you would want a steel cage match to be. Some people would complain they didn't blade, yada, yada, yada. Who cares? That was hard hitting. It was a great match. There were about 9 false finishes in that match. Each guy hit their own finisher at least 4 or 5 times. CM Punk hit the stomp. Seth Rollins hit the GTS. They kicked out. There was a combo of finishers. They kicked out. It really had the crowd into it, had them going. There were so many false finishes. Both guys were made to look real strong. And that being said, Seth Rollins hit a super stomp on CM Punk. Could have walked out of the cage. Both guys could have walked out of the cage at multiple points, but they just wanted to highlight the hatred they had for each other. They chose not to. And they just started throwing and going at each other every chance they got when either one of them could have won the match at any point. But Seth Rollins hit a super stomp on CM Punk. Could have went for the cover, but he was admiring his work, smiling, sitting there against the rope. And in what was the best match of the night, you had a definitive winner because Seth Rollins escaped the cage and won the match. But did he really escape the cage? Because Roman Reigns, who we haven't seen since the Royal Rumble, since he got beat up by Seth Rollins, double stomped on the floor, stomped onto the stairs. Roman Reigns made his return, came out through the crowd like he used to do with the Shield, ripped Seth out the cage, which, inadvertently won him the match. But I don't think Roman cared. Roman didn't care who won that match. Seth Rollins, CM Punk, he don't like either one of them. He likes maybe Punk a little more, but he came out and he completely destroyed Seth Rollins. He hit the stomp on Seth Rollins outside the ring. And there was this moment where he was about to give Seth the stomp on the stairs like he got himself. But then security came out and they interrupted it. They said, "Oh, don't do that, Roman, no." But then Roman noticed in the cage that Paul Heyman was comforting CM Punk. He was helping him up to his feet. And that just made Roman laugh because obviously Roman is a face. Roman is a face character right now on WWE. But you wouldn't imagine it based on the way he acts. Because Roman's mannerisms and everything, people were worried that, they're going to make Roman come back kind of soft, tribal chief, whatever, yada, yada, yada. He's not going to be the same version of himself. The only thing about Roman Reigns that's changed since he came back was that he's listed face on the website. Because if you watch the show, nothing about Roman Reigns acts face. He acts the exact same way he did, those 4 years where he was just wreaking havoc on the division. And last we saw him as a heel at WrestleMania, he's just acting the exact same way. He came in the ring because he didn't like that Paul Heyman was talking to CM Punk. And he just gave Punk the beats. He laid him out with a spear and everything, kind of caught Paul off guard. Do we think Paul Heyman is going to turn on Roman Reigns at WrestleMania 41? Because that match between Seth Rollins, CM Punk, and Roman Reigns, the triple threat match, I'm looking forward to. I think it should be a great feud leading into WrestleMania and arguably the match of the entire show. We'll see, but that'll be the match. And there is a chance that Paul Heyman turns against Roman Reigns to side with CM Punk if the beef is that much. So, and CM Punk has the favor from Paul Heyman. Will he use that to get the match? Will he use that after the match and say, "You come with me, you help me," not Roman Reigns? Who knows? But Roman Reigns came back, looked as strong as ever, laid out Seth Rollins, laid out CM Punk, and stood tall with his finger in the air as he always does. And that was how you closed Monday Night Raw in what was a great show at Madison Square Garden. Another break here. WIUR is looking for e-board positions for this coming fall semester, and every single position on the board is open. So if you're interested, go to WIUR Gales Radio on Instagram and click the link in the description or in the bio if you're interested in joining the e-board for next semester. If you want a position on the e-board, go fill out the form, sign up, and just some general reminders. Make sure you follow WIUR Gales Radio on Instagram at WIUR_Gales Radio for all the club updates and more. Yeah, follow them on Instagram. Looking for a direct line to the people of Iona. You can reach out and let us know if you have an event or program on that Instagram or whatnot. If you need to talk to them, again, like I said, the radio is the Instagram is WIUR_Gales Radio, or you can email James Melvin, the president, for any requests at what I imagine. Off the top of my head, I don't know, but what I imagine is jmelvin1@gales.iona.edu. If you have any questions, email him, reach out to him. And WIUR is also looking for writers to create top of the hour news, sports, and entertainment updates. Updates are created once a week and it'll be 90 seconds. Equipment is provided. Reach out to the WIUR e-board if you're interested in doing that. Now, without further ado, we'll go into our last segment of the day, that being NXT. Like I said, we keep them for the end because they're the ones with the special event and we have to give them their shine. Now, to go back to NXT last week, to build kind of into what we got going on tonight. We open with a tag match between Piper Niven and Chelsea Green versus Zarya and Sol Ruca, which was a fun, good match. But again, there's been some complaints that Chelsea Green has been taking pins in non-title matches to people on the main roster. But last week, she took a pin against Sol Ruca in a non-title match on NXT. And Sol Ruca hasn't even sniffed the main roster yet. There's been no speculation that she was coming up. She hasn't made an appearance, nothing. But she got a pin over Chelsea Green, which I guess everybody likes Sol Ruca. There's nobody that's a Sol Ruca critic that I've seen because she's just such a good in-ring worker. She's one of the best in NXT. And dare I say, she has the best finisher in the business. I love it. The Soul Snatcher, that like flipping cutter RKO type finisher off the rope. It's just so good. And it's so creative and innovative. I've never seen it done that way before. But Sol Ruca hit that on Chelsea Green and pinned her to win the match. So could you see a contest maybe on NXT or on a main roster show, Sol Ruca versus Chelsea Green for the United States Championship? Maybe. Would be a good match, and it would be a deserved nice title shot for Sol Ruca to maybe give her some momentum, even if she lost. But yeah, that just caught me off guard to start off the show. So they kicked off the show with a bang. Jada Parker and Kehlani Jordan had that one-on-one match. That was a grudge match between the two that's been building over the span of like a few weeks or a month, whatever it may be. Jada Parker was the one who ended up getting the win, getting her hand raised, and she declared that she'll be watching the matches between Julia and Stephanie Vaquer. That takes place tonight at Roadblock at the theater at MSG. So Jada Parker will be there, and she'll likely be challenging for either the NXT Women's Championship or the North American Championship following this matchup. They had a segment where Obafemi was at a press conference, nothing to blow your socks off or get you really going. It was just pretty much basic promo, talking to media of the sorts about their about his upcoming NXT Championship match tonight against Moose from TNA. Yeah, nothing to write home about there. Just a casual promo. I'm gonna beat him. Yada yada yada. You know, your typical stuff you have in a wrestling show. Then the Hardy Boys came out to cut a promo. They were happy to be back home, but they were soon interrupted by Hank and Tank, who were just looking for some advice. They were asking them to, who better to go to than the greatest tag team of all time? We're looking to get our names out there. Do you have any advice for us moving forward? And Jeff Hardy just told him, you got to be extreme. And, Josh Briggs and Inamura came out to cut more of a heel promo against them, tell Hank and Tank to get the hell out of the ring. They were kind of talking some crap to the Hardys as well. And that caused a brawl between Hank and Tank, Briggs and Inamura, which they brawled off into the sunset. And then out from behind them popped up Fraxium, who didn't attack them. They just happened to make an appearance in the ring. Who knows where they came from? Were they under the ring? Were they in the crowd? I don't know because I didn't see. But they popped up out of nowhere, and they had a little face-to-face before their TNA World Tag Title match tonight at Roadblock. So, again, great match. NXT's been putting on bangers recently. Hardys versus Fraxium. Fraxium has yet to have a bad match in the last year. So could be match of the night. It should be a great match because you're working with legends like Jeff Hardy and Matt Hardy, who can still go, as you saw against the NQCC last week, or the week before, 2 weeks ago. But yeah, should be a great match. Could be match of the night. Jordan Grace and Cora Jade had a match that got set up due to a backstage segment earlier in the night. And I believe that Jordan Grace was going to win the match, but it ended in injury, which a lot of people feared that Cora re-injured her knee. After that, the way it looked like she said, "Oh, my knee is messed up." So, but we hope Cora's okay. I mean, I believe she appeared on TNA later on Thursday, and it wasn't a knee injury. It was some sort of head or neck injury that she had going on, but it wasn't anything serious. So glad that she's fine. Glad she could still compete. She has a big TNA title match coming up, I believe, um, at their pay-per-view Sacrifice, which I haven't watched any TNA, but perhaps I'll start tuning in because it seems like they're building up that show real nicely. But Cora Jade has a big match on it, so glad that didn't get taken away from her. Glad she's okay. Ethan Page and Javon exchanged some final words in an interview as they prepare for their New York City street fight at Roadblock tonight, to which I'll have a prediction for later on, but that should be violent. And will it end the feud? Will it not? Who knows? All I know is it'll be violent, and it'll be a culmination of everything that's been building between the two over the last few months or so. Trick Williams got a match with Kale Dixon for calling out Mr. Chase backstage or saying something about Mr. Chase. But they set up a match between that, which was never going to be competitive. But they had Trick come out, hit Trick shot, and just start beating the brakes off Kale Dixon right away. Knocked him out cold in seconds. And Eddie Thorpe came out, and they made an underground match in 2 weeks, not Roadblock tonight. Not this week, not tonight, but next week. We'll be getting a Trick Williams versus Eddie Thorpe underground match to settle their score and settle their beef, which should be fun. First underground match in a while, it feels like. So yeah, it should be fun. You had Roxanne Perez attack and lay out Jordan Grace backstage with a chair, which ultimately led to Ava setting up a match for tonight at Roadblock between Roxanne Perez and Jordan Grace. And unlike, you know what, we'll get into that later. I'll be giving predictions at the end for tonight's card, little insight into it. But Roxanne Perez versus Jordan Grace is set for Roadblock tonight. Another fantastic match that they're running back from last year. Moose came out and took to the podium to give his 2 cents on his matchup with Obafemi coming up. And again, Ava came out after. This is where she announced the match between Jordan Grace and Roxanne Perez. But then she was interrupted by Fatal Influence, more specifically Fallon Henley, who's looking to get a North American title rematch, which she complained she hadn't gotten yet, considering Stephanie defended against Carmen Petrovich, and she was champion for, like 100 days or so. She got herself a good reign. Definitely should deserve some sort of rematch for her title, even though she cheated to win a few times. But she had a right to be angry. She interrupted Ava, was calling for a rematch. Ava walked off. She's like, "Oh, don't walk away from me." Yeah. So I think Fallon Henley will find herself back in the title picture very soon. Ricky Saints came face to face with Rich Holland backstage, so I'm sure they're going to end up running that match at some point. And he also had a stare down with Sean Spears before he went out to challenge for the North American title from Tony D'Angelo. Now, obvious that any chance they get, the WWE is pulling these AEW callbacks. Sean Spears was there, Ricky Saints was there, Ricky Starks, and yeah, they just had a little face to face. Didn't say a word to each other. Really didn't say anything to each other. Just stared each other down. Sean Spears laughed, kept it stepping. So just an AEW callback and a shot maybe at Tony Khan, like, "Oh, we got your guys." But that was right before the North American title match in the main event between Sean Spears and Tony D'Angelo. And it was on that night that Tony D'Angelo's North American Championship reign came to a close after beating Obafemi last year. His long reign came to an end. It was a good reign, I thought. Tony D did good work with the belt. But he was coming in with what they've been pushing as a back injury here. You're not clear. You shouldn't be fighting with this back. But he insisted. He gave out on him, and Sean Spears was able to roll him up. He kicked out of the C4, which was, Sean Spears' finishing move. But he ended up getting rolled up because of his back. Sean Spears stole the North American title, and we'll see how that reign goes. I'm sure it'll be fun and good. So that was it for NXT last week. That leads us into NXT Roadblock tonight at the theater at Madison Square Garden. Anyone watching, if you intend on watching that match, it'll be on the CW. It's not a Peacock event, not a PLE, just a regular Tuesday night edition of NXT on the CW at 8 p.m. As for the matches, we have 5 announced matches. You have Javon Evans versus Ethan Page in a New York City street fight. Jordan Grace versus Roxanne Perez one-on-one. The Hardys and Fraxium are going at it for the TNA World Tag Team Championships. Oba Femi is defending the NXT Championship against Moose from TNA, the X Division champion. And Julia versus Stephanie Vaquer, title for title, winner takes all match, will probably main event that show. Now, as for the predictions and the matches themselves, Javon Evans versus Ethan Page in that street fight. I feel like Ethan Page as a heel will get the best of him in the street fight. I feel like he's going to win again. I predicted Javon Evans to win last time, but he did not. And going into a no DQ match, I don't see Javon Evans getting a win over Ethan Page, especially because I feel like Ethan Page needs it more right now. As weirdly as that sounds, considering he's been winning the matches. Javon Evans is so young. Everybody's always going to be interested in him. I feel like he does good work. I feel like he has underrated promo work because it's so real. It sounds like how a kid myself would be talking on the street. So it's not a traditional promo where you're putting so much emotion into it and you're this and you're that. It just feels natural. Doesn't feel like he's doing too much. So I really like Javon Evans. He has one of the best movesets in wrestling, especially in the WWE. So I feel like he'll be okay. He's so young, still developing. He doesn't need the win. So I feel like Ethan Page is going to come out on top in that one. Jordan Grace versus Roxanne Perez. The first time they ran this, Roxanne Perez retained the NXT Women's Championship last year at Battleground, I think it was. So this time around, I feel like Jordan Grace is going to win. It'll be a defining win for her going forward to push herself in NXT as this top girl, which she already is. The moment she came in, she already was. But it'll help her get this more of a push as a top girl in NXT, and it'll also help wind down Roxanne Perez's time in the brand. It could be her last match. Who knows? She's going to have a stand and deliver match, a WrestleMania match. Neither. Who knows? But Roxanne Perez, it's imminent that she's going to be coming up to the main roster full time. So this match is kind of a way to wind her time down in NXT and give Jordan Grace that win that she kind of needs right now to solidify herself. The Hardys versus Fraxium. This match could have gone either way when it was announced, but when Santino came out and announced it for the TNA World Tag Team Championships, I decided that, I felt like whoever's championships were being defended, that's who was going to win. And I feel like the Hardys are going to end up getting the win against Fraxium tonight to retain their TNA championships in what should be a great match. Oba Femi versus Moose, kind of the same thing. Whoever defended their title was probably going to win, but it's the NXT championship that's up for grabs, which means that I believe Oba Femi will get a defining win in his NXT championship run and defeat Moose, another powerhouse wrestler, to solidify himself as the top dog, as the ruler of NXT, as he calls himself, ruler of all things, because he's going to say he beat the top guy in TNA. So Oba Femi, I feel like, will retain against Moose. And then in your final match, you have Stephanie Vaquer versus Julia, title for title, winner takes all. And if I'm not wrong, I think there was this report that Julia was dealing with some sort of injury, which is maybe why they rushed this feud in this title match. She has to go out and recover. Whether that be the case or not, that kind of leans into my decision. But I feel like regardless of whether that was it or not, in a title for title, I feel like Stephanie Vaquer comes out on top. She ends up with 2 belts at the end of the night, holding the North American Championship, which she defended, and holding the NXT Women's Championship, which she won for the very first time. I feel like Stephanie Vaquer will be the one walking out of NXT Roadblock with 2 belts. Do I think Julia is going to win the match? No. But the only way they both walk out with the titles in hand, each one of them one title in hand, is if this match ends in a DQ. Who would interfere? Who knows? I don't think anybody's going to interfere. I kind of buy into the fact that Julia is dealing with some sort of injury and needs some time off. So I think Stephanie Vaquer, in what will most likely be the main event of the show, will walk out with both championships around her shoulders and or waist. If you want to see if I'm right, tune in 8 o'clock tonight on the CW. That pretty much wraps it up for me for the week. Thank you guys for listening, and I'll see you next week.